Hey there, welcome back to another video. So in today's video, I'm going to demonstrate to you all how Yahweh, how Daddy God, Abba Padre, is ultimately growing a family. Okay, so I'm gonna walk you through the mind map and just kind of explain some of those things to you along the way. Okay, so as you can see here on the board, I have everything that I need to show you on the board. So we'll start at the top. You know, you have Yahweh, who is Daddy God, and he's ultimately growing a family, and how this is ultimately connected to culture and collective memory and consciousness. Okay? So the first thing is in the Bible, right? God created man and woman, and the union between man and woman, la pareja, mirrors Daddy God. So if you have as within, so without, right? Man and woman, as above, so below, la pareja is the structure of the relationship that you have to the woman, right? The Bible then says man has to get to know Eve. Adam knew Eve. So to know has a double meaning to it. As above, it means I like your Ori. I like that tutelage. I like the way you think. And me, so since I like the way you think, you can get some of that tutelage. Okay? As above, so below. If I like your tutelage, you can get that tutelage. And Adam then chooses to walk through the garden with Eve. That is la pareja. We're going to see a lot of themes of La Pareja within Greek mythology when you think about Philemon and Bacchus. You think about Pygmalion and Galatea. This is the archetype of La Pareja. And so, La Pareja, tutelage and nutelage, ultimately then creates children and it creates family, right? And a collection of families creates a community. And when you have a group of a community begin to live and work together, you get communal living. And this is what creates the concept or the archetype of the king for men. Because now your kingdom, which is your family, is mirroring you. So this is why throughout the Bible, you had a long history of different types of kings that would arise and come to power. Some kings were righteous and some kings were not. Some kings were in alignment and some kings were not upright. It all comes back to Daddy God, who is the King of Kings. So when you have families, a group of families, you get community. Community creates communal living. And when you then have a group of people that begin to work together collectively, you then get education. Think about the Aztecs and their intricate irrigation systems that they were able to build collectively as a people. Think about the different types of art and stories that are then told about who a people are and how they came to be. These sort of the dialectic of education and art then ultimately creates culture and collective memory, right? Here we are again. Your Ori is connected to your prefrontal cortex, right? This example of consciousness. And your ME, which is your expression, your soul, your embodied consciousness. So this is how you understand Daddy God to be connected to growing a family. He's growing a family in each of us. Aflorar, porque florecer. And the most important component about it is that Daddy God has given us all a place to be. That is aflorencia. With that being said, one of the things that we tend to forget as spiritual beings, as human beings with spiritual bodies and spiritual understandings of ourselves, is that we as people are designed to grow. That there is something greater than you that is ultimately parenting you. There is something greater than you that is ultimately rooting for you, that has created you to be who you are. And when we start to talk about the shadow side of consciousness, which is trauma, A lot of that has to do with the fact that some of these archetypes, like Daddy God and the Divine Mother, were not necessarily integrated correctly into how the person told their story about who they are. So it really is about helping people to grasp, right, a hold of how they tell their story as a person, because that's where God is going to be in. God is not the God of chaos. God is not the God of desmadre, right? God is committed to your growth as a person, as a human being. Because, like I've said before, Daddy God or Yahweh wants to incarnate in man. So we are all expressions of Daddy God.